What is domain-driven design? Does it make sense using domain-driven design with AI in 2026? Domain-driven design, or DDD, is a methodology or framework that in summary has a goal to focus primarily on what the client needs and the business requirement. How they do that? Basically, it has two layers. One is the strategic layer, where the goal is to extract the knowledge or the domain of the business, taking the vocabulary terminology that we call ubiquitous language, define a context of this vocabulary that's a bounded context. Remember, one word can have different meanings. For example, light, bright. And when we talk about technology, it's impossible to don't remember Ajax, right? Ajax can be a clean product, a soccer team, or the technology that everybody hates. With that knowledge clear and well defined, it is time to take that and move to the code, and that is where exactly the static domain-driven design come in, where we start to using the patterns inside the static, such as entity, value object, factory, events, and so on, and take that vocabulary and convert to the code. Okay, so we have those two, let's say, mappings or layers of domain-driven design. Does it make sense using that with AI? Yes, especially as you can see several reports, including Forbes and Gartner, showing that with the increase of productivity and software development, we as software engineers still doing the same mistake, that is not getting close what the client needs and doing a lot of over engineering. So if you can combine the context that we extract from the strategic and put in AI, in summary, what you have is the spec-driven development. I know that is way more details, but you can use AI with your context. This way you write code more effective and more clear, and also writing use the right terminology inside your business, inside your domain. This way you can have a clear communication with the product and your code, and both will talk the same language. It doesn't matter if you are writing Java, if you're writing Ruby, and so on. So with the right context, AI can produce a better, clear, and more effective code for you. Hopefully you pay attention, you got my point. Why should I use domain-driven design with AI? Because this is more effective. And again, just AI is not changing the reports about mistake that we are doing over and over and over. That is about writing things that doesn't make sense to the business. Okay, Otavio, hopefully you got my idea. How can I start? Naturally, you got the why. Then let's start reading the classic books. So the Eric Evans one for sure is the classic book of domain-driven design. That is, if you are a Java developer, you can read my own book where I wrote about domain-driven design. I make sure about those layers of mappings, the strategic and the static. I put some in several Java sample codes where you have a clear understanding about what is domain-driven design in theory and practice. And finally, avoid those mistakes. I make sure that I put that in the book, and I will highlight here. So the first mistake is naturally starting writing, focus only writing code and ignoring the strategic. Unfortunately, this is the most often mistake that I have seen in several companies trying to apply domain-driven design. So if you write code, if without context, sorry, it is not domain-driven design, or you are not using clearly the domain-driven design. The second mistake is the opposite, where people focus too much in the strategic, write fancy documentations, and forget to make things done. Indeed, the proper domain-driven design is the right balance between both, the strategic and the static. And finally, when we have things done in the strategic and start implementing on the static, we are using poorly the patterns inside domain-driven design. For example, we could use more value objects instead of primitive types. For example, if I want to represent a document, I could use a type of value object to that document, like passport, especially because those types has several validations, requirements, and so on. So you could use more patterns such as value objects, events, factories, and so on. That is it for today. Hopefully you got my idea of domain-driven design with AI. You can use and combine both to become more effective. And if you enjoyed this content, please subscribe to this channel.